What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Mekanism. And today, guys, we're going to be setting up a thermoelectric boiler, which is an awesome multi-block structure that Mekanism offers, which allows for the production of steam. Now, on its own, this really doesn't do that much because steam doesn't serve much of a purpose until you put it into the turbine multi-block structure that we're going to be working on next episode, and that is where you'll start generating power. But the main goal behind this is to combine both of these multi-block structures together, and then you'll use that to generate some power. Now, one thing that I do want to point out right now is if you're coming to make the boiler and you're coming to make the turbine and you want to actually generate power, a net gain of power, then you're going to have to use the fuelwood heater. A lot of people think that you can use either heater and it'll still be a net gain of power, but it's been stated, unless it was changed in a very recent update, it was stated that the resistive heater would form a closed loop, which pretty much means that if you're inputting energy, you're going to get out that much or less energy, and you'll either gain zero or have an actual net loss of energy if you're using the resistive heater to heat up the boiler today. So I'm going to be using the fuelwood heater. The main goal behind the boiler was to make it so that if you were to put things in the fuelwood heater, solid fuel, that you would get more energy from those than you would just throwing them into something like the heat generator. But other than that, I would just stick to the fuelwood heater. That's what we're going to be making. If you really want to use the resistive heater, there's really no point, but you can do that if you'd like to. So that's just one thing that I wanted to cover before we actually jumped into this. But of course, you are going to need to heat it because you do need to get it up to at least 100 degrees Celsius to produce water. So just something to keep in mind, you are going to have to pick one of these, and you do really want the fuelwood heater. So there's a lot of stuff in this chest that we have to craft, mainly because this multi-block structure has a lot of different components that go along with it. It requires a ton of steel. That's really it. So if we search up boiler, you'll see there's only really two blocks right here, the boiler casing and the boiler valve. So today we're going to be making it to a height of 7. You don't need to make it that big. It could be bigger, it could be smaller, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but we're making it a relatively average size, I would say. And so we're going to be using boiler casing. We're going to be using two valves, one for inputting water, one for pulling out the steam. You do not need a valve to actually hook up the thermoelectric cables to run it in there. Thermodynamic conductors. What am I saying? Thermoelectric. But yeah, so the only machine that you're going to have is going to be a pump. And we can pull out pretty much all of this stuff, actually, because I know how much we're going to need. You know what? We just need to... I forget what the button was to pull all this stuff out. No. You know what, we'll just grab all of it out like this. I remember there was a way to pull everything out of a chest, and I just forgot. But, okay, so we're going to make boiler casings. We need 56 boiler casings today, and the reason behind that is we're going to be using 52, but we need to craft 2 boiler valves, which take the advanced control circuits, and then 4 boiler casings around that. So, luckily for us, we're only using 2 boiler valves. You can use more if you'd like to, but that pretty much lets the recipe work perfectly for us, and then we're left with the 52 casing that we need. Now, we're going to be using the structural glass, and this is pretty much just going to be going on the walls so that we can see what's going on inside the boiler. Now, we should get 40 of these, so I want to make sure that we don't overcraft it. We're actually going to be using 38 of them. It would require 40 if we were going to fill in everything, but because 2 of them are replaced with boiler valves, we're only going to need 38 of those, but no way to get around that because you craft 4 at a time. So the next thing that we're going to need is going to be the superheating element. Now, this is going to be at the base of the multi-block structure itself, and the water is going to be sitting on top of this superheating element. We're going to be using 4 of them. You can use more, you can use less, but we're going to be using 4 of them, and these are pretty much going to sit with the water on top of it and just heat it up. And the cool thing about these that I'll be able to show you guys a little bit later is when you actually put in heat, it does not light up until it gets to 100 degrees Celsius, and then once it gets to that, it lights up red. You see it almost like coils, like you would see in the oven or something, and that's how you can tell it's working if you don't actually want to click on it and look at the UI itself. So the next thing that we're going to be using is right down here. It is the pressure disperser. Now, this is going to go above where the water is, but below where the steam goes, and we're going to be making another 4 of these, and these are going to require just some steel, some iron bars, and enriched alloy. So we're going to make 4 of those. Oh, you know what? I only made 1 superheating element. I forgot. For some reason, I thought the recipe was 4. Yeah, so we need all 4 of those. And the last thing that we need to make is going to be our pump. So you can typically you're going to want to use a lot of electric pumps to get water into these. If you have other mods that offer ways to pump water that's more effective than using, the Mekanism pump, I would suggest you do that, because the electric pump in Mekanism does require a lot of power, and it makes it a little bit expensive to actually run this system. But eventually, when you start heating this up to very high temperatures, which we're not going to be doing today, now that I think about it, we need the fuelwood heater too. But we're not going to be heating it up really high today with a fuelwood heater. If you were to take a resistive heater, you could get this thing wicked overly capped on temperature very quick. But we're only going to be using one pump, and that is going to be more than efficient, or more than sufficient today when we are hooking up one fuelwood heater. And I need to remember to grab a stack of coal. Should be good enough for this. Okay, so we're going to run back here, and we are going to build it back here. Now, I did go off camera, and we shouldn't have as much of an issue over here, because while I was off camera today, and sorry for going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I started streaming on Twitch because there's some stuff that I can do off camera now. So if you do want to look in the description, I will have a link to my Twitch there so that you can always know when I'm broadcasting. Had a lot of fun with everyone that dropped by for the stream, but they were all there for the moving of the 5x ore processing, or the sulfuric acid being moved elsewhere, and then we chunk loaded it because it was causing a lot of lag in the base, but I moved it so it's no longer over here. So there should not be really any FPS drops looking over here. I do know that the thermal evaporation plants still cause some FPS drops when you look at them, but that's what any multi-block structure that Mekanism offers does, just I guess because of how it's coded or optimized. I don't exactly know what it is, but just something to keep in mind. Even this one will do that, the multi-block structure that we're about to make. But this area right here is what we've cleared out. This is the exact space that it's going to take up, except for right here, which I cleared out just so that we can actually see what's going on. So we're going to be starting with a 4x4 base, and it's all going to be these boiler casings all along the bottom here. And there we go. So we're going to be using boiler casing to go all the way up the sides too. So I guess we can run those all the way up the top right now. So run those down. It's going to be 7 high, and there we go. And we're going to need one up there anyway. I was going to say that's a misplaced block, but we're going to need one up there anyway. And we can connect this and just fill in the top too. Nope. Okay, that we do not need right there, but we can fill in the top here. Like I said, you can make it a little bit smaller. You can make it a little bit bigger. We're just kind of going with a medium size right now. So we used up all of the boiler casing that we have, which, reaffirms my thought that this is the correct size for this that we wanted. I was worried we might actually be one too low with the ceiling, but no, we're good to go. So now that we've done that, we can put in the superheating elements. So like I said, this is going to go right below the water. And of course, it's supposed to be the idea that these have coils and they're going to get the heat. And then this is going to heat up and it's going to turn the water into steam. It's going to bring it to a boil. So it has to get to 100 degrees Celsius before you will be able to produce any steam. That's pretty self-explanatory, but these will stay kind of gray and look just kind of meh until it gets to that temperature, and then they light up a little bit and it looks pretty darn cool. So then we're going to be taking the pressure dispersers and we are going to be placing them up here. So we'll throw the pressure dispersers down. Now, because ours is a height of 7, it's a little bit weird. If we were to make it one taller, we would have 2 blocks above the pressure dispersers and 2 blocks above the superheating elements down here. But I'm not super worried about the spacing for this, just because we're not going to be inputting that much water and steam. So pretty much the reason that you want these different spacings is because up there, whatever space, whatever air that you leave above the pressure dispersers is where your steam is stored. You'll be able to see it in this multi-block structure. The internal storage will equate to the space that you have above this. And of course, you could fill it. In this case, if you were to leave a 2-block opening above the superheating elements, you could put in more of these. But just keep in mind with the superheating elements, at least they need to be touching each other. So you don't want to have, 2 in there and have them diagonal of each other because they're not actually touching and connecting. A pretty good rule of thumb is you want to make sure that the textures are combining for these to make one. But so the space above these is where it's stored. So the water is stored in this pretty much 2x2x1 area right above the superheating elements, and our steam is going to be stored in the 2x2x2 square that is above the pressure dispersers. And it'll be a little bit easier to see because we're using structural glass around the outside, even though we're really not going to be looking in up at the steam. So really what we need to do now is at least fill in these two sides right here. So there we go. And we'll fill in most of this side over here. This is where our heater is going to be going. Actually, no, we're going to fill in this whole side. So our heater is going to be going in that little open space back there, but we're going to fill in this whole side right here with the structural glass. And then we're going to fill in the whole back side too. I will grab that block though. So we're going to fill this in because we're going to be putting, at least for the time being, both of the valves on the front. Now, we're not even going to be pulling the steam out just yet. That'll wait until next episode when we make the turbine, but we are going to be inputting water so that we can start generating steam, and I can show you guys how it works. So we're going to be inputting the water down with the boiler valve down here. So you're going to want to put it in the section that's going to be holding the water. So whether that's, here, we could put it up one, as long as it's in the section below the pressurized dispersers or the pressure dispersers and above the very bottom of the machine, you should have no issue. And then of course the valve for pulling the steam out is going to do the same thing, but you're going to want to put it where it's actually for the steam containment, which is going to be up top above the pressure dispersers. So pretty much the rest of this just needs to get filled in with this structural glass, and then we will be good to go. So we can fill in this block right here, and then we can fly up and get the rest of this. So now this should actually be formed. Now we have the ability to click on it, and we come to the UI right here, which looks very similar to the thermal evaporation plant. And the reason behind that is because it is very similar. You've got the temperature, which you're going to be able to monitor. Right now it's sitting at 300 Kelvin, but I would suggest switching it to Celsius. Now the reason behind this is because a lot of people know, at least most people that are in high school right now will know boiling for, Kelvin, Celsius, Fahrenheit, all of that. But it's a lot easier to just look and say, is it 100 degrees Celsius? How much over 100 degrees Celsius is it? All of that good stuff. So I would suggest switching it to Celsius, but you've got all the options that it always offers. I believe it's pronounced Rankine, Fahrenheit, you got Kelvin, you got all that good stuff. So we'll stay at Celsius, but below that you have the boil rate. Now you've got maximum boil and boil rate. Now, maximum boil is going to say how fast it can be boiled for the temperature that you are at. Boil rate is going to be the rate at which it's boiling. So typically, boil rate will be determined by whether or not you're inputting enough water to reach max boil. So if the boil rate is the equivalent of the max boil, then you are inputting more than enough or just enough water to reach that. If you have a higher max boil than the boil rate, then you're just not inputting enough water. Now, it should maintain with the fuelwood heater pretty much 100 degrees Celsius, because as it's giving off the heat and turning the water into steam, it'll maintain enough heat that it can continue boiling the water, but it's not going to go much higher. If you were to take the resistive heater and throw down 10,000 joules, 10 kilojoules, however high you want to go it, or whatever you want to set it to, if it's an absurd amount, this will go up to it'll just continue rising the temperature, and eventually you will max out the boil rate, but there really is no reason to go that high. So just something to keep in mind, you don't need to set the resistive heater if you do want to use that or test stuff with it. You don't need to set it to an absurd amount to get a lot of steam. I also, again, would not suggest using that, but that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, we need to put down a pump, and I guess I should actually move this over a little bit, unless we want to, I want the pump to be on this side over here. So we're going to flip these around a little bit, and we will put the pump down over here, and we'll get some water down there in a second. And we'll put the boiler valve right there. Again, it'll reform, same stuff going on here. And we just need to take a mechanical pipe and put it right on there. And I am going to throw a torch down here. Another little tangent for you guys. I was planning on getting rid of all the torches before today's episode, but I actually decided that that would be something that I would do on the stream. And unfortunately, the stream only lasted for about 2 hours today. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't get around to doing all the work that I'd like to. But what we need to do is not only replace the torches with lights on the walls, we need to replace the ground with slabs right now, because we can put light below the slabs. It was at least suggested that I do that. And the main reason I actually want to do that is because with the ceiling height at least out in the main room, and we need to go out here anyway. With the ceiling height that we have out here, putting lights on the ceiling will not provide enough light on the ground to actually prevent monsters from spawning, so we'd have to figure out something to do about that. And because there's really nothing in the middle of the room, there's no pillars, there's no anything, the main issue would be right in the center here, where things would be able to spawn, and there really wouldn't be much we could do about it. So I'm thinking we're going to put slabs on the ground, we'll ditch the factory blocks for the floor, which is a little unfortunate because I really like them. But then we'll put lights below the floor, and that should be all good. That should take care of all of that. So hopefully it's not going to annoy you for another episode or two, but I think I should be streaming tomorrow in the middle of the day for Eastern Standard Time, and I should be able to get all of that fixed. So really all we have to do now is get the water down below this, and oh my gosh, this is on fast. Okay, well, it's on fast, unfortunately, but no, wait, we need that one out. Okay, so we'll throw the water down there and fill that in. It should be pumping now. We've got both upgrades for it. I'll throw the speed in there first. Probably actually should have done energy first. But you can see now that water is in the bottom of this. Now, there is not much. It's actually starting to go up, though, and eventually this will fill up because we are not inputting any heat into this. Now, once these finish, I will throw in the energy upgrades, and then we can worry about the heat. But this is filling up. If we look in here, you can see the boil rate is still at 0, max boil 0, because it's not high enough in temperature. But you can see the internal buffer for water is filling up right now. Eventually, it will completely fill up until we throw the heat in there and it gets to a boiling temperature. But it's pretty cool because you can actually see it is pretty accurate in here with the visual representation of where the water is. I really like how it looks. So it just is a little kind of weird because it's like filling in the glass right now, if you think about it. So you've got, you know, the superheating elements, and it's not just filling in the glass area right there. It's actually filling in like the glass block right here, which is kind of weird, but it's also kind of cool. So now we need to worry about putting the heater down. So we're using the fuelwood heater. One stack of coal should be sufficient for the time being. Eventually I want to get a lot of coal go, or a lot of, you know, either coal or charcoal production going. And whether it's making a tree farm or just going and chopping down a bunch of trees manually, that's what I'd like to use to at least heat this while we use it. But we can throw down the fuelwood heater. It's currently sitting at the same temperature right now that we have the boiler sitting at, but we can throw the coal in there and it's going to start heating up. And if we look in here, you can see the temperature in here is starting to go up too. This is directly adjacent to this whole system right now, so we actually don't need to use the thermodynamic conductor. But if we did want to use the thermodynamic conductor, all you would have to do is just run it anywhere into this system. I pretty much just run it into the blocks at the base, but you can see that this is now heating up. And once it gets to 100 degrees Celsius, it should start producing steam, and we won't have to worry about the water being completely full. So it's not the fastest way to heat it up. Obviously, you can use more than one if you want. You can use a lot of them if you want to get a pretty fast production going. But right now, because we're only using one pump, I'm not super worried about having it go wicked fast. So there is something else that I really want to show you guys that's cool once this starts producing steam. So let's see if we can watch this. Yep, so you can see it gets a little bit lighter in there. It's hard to see because there's water, but these should have changed colors on the texture, so I don't think we'll ever get through all this water. It's going in. Like you can see, the boil rate now is 40, max boil is 40. So like I said, that means that we're either inputting the exact amount that we need or extra water is going into the system, and it's pretty easy for us to tell. We can just take a look down here at this pump, and if its internal buffer is filled up, yeah, so we're pretty much inputting, you know, a decent amount right now. We could easily have this running at a higher rate, but you can see it lists the boil rate over here. You've got the max boil going on over here. We're getting some steam production up top. So if we were actually to go up here, you can see that there's steam, and it pretty much just fills the whole area because it's a gas. So it's pretty awesome, the multi-block structure, but again, it can cause a little bit of lag because it's a Mekanism multi-block structure, and it's got a lot of dynamic updates going on pretty much all the time that it's running. But one thing that I want to show you, and I really want to give props to the mod author for making this, and I remember watching his video on the thermoelectric boilers, and he said that he did a lot of work to actually make this. When you click statistics, you get these awesome graphs. Now, you can see the superheaters in here. Like I said, you can have more. You can see the max water. You can see the max steam that it's capable of holding, but that's not why we're here. We are here for these graphs down here. Now, it's a little weird in that wherever you move your mouse, it's going to give you, how many millibuckets per tick that is at. It's not going to give you the amount it's actually showing on the graph at that time. It's a little weird. Like if you have a TI-84 calculator and you're just kind of going around a graph tracking points, that's what this is like. So if you want to see what the graph is showing you, you kind of got to highlight over the area that you want to see. And I know it's a little difficult for you guys to see because I don't have my mouse showing, but right now we're hovering over that pretty much neon green line at the top, and that's showing our boil rate is pretty much 40. Now this graph down here is going to show you the max boil, which again is 40, but you can see that it goes much, much higher, and it caps out at, what is that? Is that 400,000 millibuckets per tick. So you can't get any higher than this, which is what I was pretty much saying. If you do set it to an absurd, wicked high temperature, tens of thousands of Kelvin, it's going to cap out at the max boil rate. So if you do need, for some ungodly reason, more steam than that can produce, then if you really want to continue using the boiler to produce steam, you should just make another one, because you're not going to get it any faster than that. But it is a little annoying that you can't really see from down here the steam until you go up, but I think this is an awesome multi-block structure. It looks really cool. Just all around, it is awesome, and I'm super excited to hook this up and get it working and generating some power. But really the only thing that we need to worry about after that is just keeping enough fuel in the fuelwood heater. So of course I'm going to let this run its course with the coal, because it will fill up its internal buffer in the top. It's nowhere close to being full with the steam right now, so that should be perfectly fine. And like I said, it maintains a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius because of course we're not putting that much temperature or much heat into it. But next episode, we will be doing the turbine. It should be somewhere around here so that we can easily move the steam over to it, unless we want to use a quantum entangler porter and just chunk load it. But a couple things that I wanted to discuss with you guys now that everyone that came just to learn about the thermoelectric boiler can go, and anyone that wants to stick around and listen to me ramble a little bit about live streaming can do so. The main thing that I want to do on live streams is, whether I'm playing Thaumcraft, whether I'm playing Mekanism, I'll be playing Mekanism a lot on there, and I will also be playing, hopefully, a mod pack. I am looking into joining a server right now. I am, contacting a couple of the guys that I know that are on there to see if we can work things out. But the main reason is because with a mod pack, I can do a lot of stuff off camera that I can't really do in Mekanism. Because with the surviving with stuff, I want to show you guys pretty much everything I do on camera aside from resource gathering. But if I do the mod pack let's play, which I pretty much will do, guaranteed, then I want to live stream a lot of it because you can do a lot more off camera and have a lot more fun. But yeah, it will be linked in the description, and I hope you guys will stop by. Like I said, you can always feel free to follow if you can't always drop by, but you sometimes want to pop in and say hello. It'd be greatly appreciated. When I streamed today, it was 2 hours long. I pretty much got no work done on camera, but I had a ton of fun because everyone stopped by, everyone said hello, they were talking in chat. We were talking about the most random things, TV shows, all that good stuff. It was a ton of fun, until unfortunately there were some technical difficulties. I died in the world. And you can see, maybe you can see if the waypoint's still at my death point out there, but I died in the world, and then the game crashed, and then OBS started freaking out. So, maybe it was my fault a little bit, but I did have a lot of fun. So if anyone's watching the video that was at the first stream, then, thanks for making it an enjoyable day. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you will join me when I'm live streaming in the future. But if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. And I will talk to you guys later.